I'm Cathy with City Farmhouse Studio, and I've been seeing a lot of posts and questions about knitting machines and what knitting machine do I buy as a beginner. And it just got me thinking about whenever I was just getting into machine knitting and all the questions and confusion that I had about which machine to buy, what machines there are, what do I need, what do I want, what all is there out there. So there's a whole list of options, and I want to tell you today so you can know and make a decision for you of what knitting machine you should buy. The carriage, which is what you run back and forth to make your knitted rows, has channels on the bottom as you put the needles in the little knobs in different positions. How you set your carriage, it will then act differently to create either a standard stitch or different effects within your knitting. So as the carriage moves across, it moves the needle out so that the loop that's on the needle will go behind the latch. It moves the yarn across to lay within the hook on top of the latch, and as it moves back, it captures the yarn and slides the previous loop down over, creating a new loop. So all single bed flatbed machines for Japanese work in a very similar matter of moving the needles out and pulling back to create your stitches. So to start with, what I'm primarily talking about is a flatbed machine. And this is an LK150 behind me, and you can see it's flat, looks like a bed, and it has 150 needles. So think of 150 stitches. Now, whenever you're looking for knitting machines, you're going to see other ones pop up. Some people call the looms with the pegs, the pegboard, knitting loom. Some kind of confuse that as it. It's a great option, great for beginners, very low price point. It is a lot of handwork, and then you just flip your stitches over one by one. So like a niddy nobby from back in the day. Others, you'll see a circular knitting machine, and these are small, from very small to even bigger ones. Addy, you'll see the brand Centro. They're great for beginners. They're very portable. Again, a lower price point, not as low as the looms or the boards, but fairly easy to get into. They are more limited in what you can make, in the size of products that you can make compared to a knitting machine that's a flatbed. So if you just want to try out, if it's for a kid that loses interest over a couple weeks, those boards and the round ones are definitely a great option to start looking at. But for those of us that know we love knitting, know we love handcrafts, and like to really get into all the options, definitely a flatbed is the way to go. And there are many price points, including free on some occasions, on ways you can get into a knitting machine. So as you're starting to look for knitting machines, there are different brands and different styles of knitting machines. Most of the knitting machines for flatbeds that you'll see are into three categories. The doobie, which are very much more commercial, more of your garment industry. Schools for fashion design will mention those. The students that work on those love them. I don't know anything about them. The other ones are going to be your Kassabs, P-A-S-S-A-P. Those are very great, heavy duty. I had one. I liked the way it felt as you're knitting on it, but the whole philosophy of how it's knit, how you control what all it can do, is a language that I couldn't get my head around, but I know those who can get their head around it and know how to use it love it. They make very great machines, great products to make off of it. Most of them that I'm familiar with and that I see are your Japanese models. And I put up a graph to show you kind of all the details of the different brands, because in different areas they were sold under different names, but the same brand. Now with everyone moving and cross-country shipping, we're seeing a lot of the same brands in different areas that weren't originally marketed to by the original manufacturers. Now, another thing with these machines, these had a big growth and a big heyday up through about the 80s. And then a lot of the machines were, the tools to make the machines were destroyed. So getting a new one now today, you got to be very careful to get an original manufacturer and not a reproduced casted off machine die from an old machine. So just be sure what you're getting. Research the brand if you don't see it on those charts. Now within those machines, you're going to see different classifications: a standard, a mid-gauge, and a bulky. And what these are referencing to are the spaces between your two needles. Just like in knitting needles, we use the different thicknesses of needles to create different gauges for different weights of yarn. Same with knitting machines. The 3 gauges will have bigger chunky, think of bigger chunky needles, and then you have a tension dial that then even further controls how tight to knit the stitches, so you can really fine tune your fabric that you want to knit. So now the big question is, well, which one do I look for? Some people who have knitting machines say get one of each, but I know that's not a feasible way to get into knitting machines for a lot of us. So the smaller gauge, the standard gauge, is 4.5 millimeters between the needles. So they're a lot closer. They knit and create very fine lace work and very fine garments. So if you like working with sport weight yarns, lace weight yarns, definitely look at a standard gauge. The next size up is a mid-gauge. These needles, depending on the brand, 6 to 6.5 millimeters apart. The fabric that's made off of mid-gauge will look much more standard to your hand knitting gauge work. So think of sport weight, DK, even up into worsted, that range of yarn. Bulky machines are 9 millimeters apart. So remember, 4.5 millimeters for standard, 6.5 for mid-gauge, 9 for bulkies. Bulkies are going to be very easy to use with the thicker yarns, looking at worsted all the way up to some of the bulkies, depending on how it's knitted, so that your latches don't split the yarn. So if you like those chunkier garments, look towards the bulky, more standard mid-gauge, and then the finer weight, more what you'd buy in commercial department stores, that's going to be your standard gauge. So by that, hopefully you can figure out where you kind of want to look into the scale of stitches, what size of those needles. Within that, there's even more classifications. So this goes for all the 3 gauges. For mid-gauge, this is one of the most entry-level machines, and it's all hand manipulation. You just can have the carriage, it can run back and forth, and the patterning is all by hand. The next step up is a punch card machine. So this is my standard gauge Toyota flatbed machine with the punch card. And what a punch card does is you have these panels that you can then feed through this system. It's a binary code, so essentially the dots mean to pull and select the needle. So as you can see, these needles stay how they are. Whenever I enable the punch card, it automatically selects those needles, and each row will move the punch card and select the appropriate needles for each row. Now, based on the settings that you select, whether it's a lace or a tuck stitch, so a lace would transfer the needles into a certain direction as you move the carriage, or a tuck stitch, you can hold stitches, and there's also plating, weaving, all kinds of different features that you can do with these punch cards. They are on a 24 stitch pattern repeat, so you are limited to that. But depending on your machine, this one, it does let you select which position those patterns are in. So you do get some customization. The step above the punch card machine is an electronic machine. I do not have one of those. I like to be more hands-on, and I also like the ease of repair, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the electronic machines are very great for if you're doing a lot of pattern work and you want to be able to program in your patterns, very customized. They also can be hooked up very easy to a computer program, run off of your laptop or desktop, and it will help you knit line by line, telling you what all you need to do each row, create custom charts, graphs of intarsia work, lots and lots of possibilities. So if you're really looking into a business model or really enjoy making everyone in your family something very custom, very detail oriented, you may want to look into the electronics. Now the next thing you need to know is what accessories you want to have for your machines. The LK150 does not come with anything. You can hook on another bed to make the bed wider. So if you make larger garments or a larger size, want to make big blankets, it's easy to keep attaching on more needles and creating wider panels of things to make. Another thing that is sold for this is a needle bug, and it's just a little attachment that you can run across, and it helps select different needles in a pattern that you can then know, okay, those are the ones I need to move over for a different effect of a knitting machine. Another thing you're going to want to look at is a ribber. Now some machines do come with a ribber, the lower bed that attaches to your main bed, and this is what allows you to do cables with ease, do different shaping. You can knit in a circle, a lot of different options. And what for this Toyota, you replace the carriage adapter, and then I line up to the ribber carriage, slide this up in place, and that connects to the ribber carriage, and then you can knit both sides of the bed. It also allows your bed to move, so you can go in between the stitches or parallel to the stitches. So a lot of options, a lot of details to learn, but more options, more capabilities. It helps you make ribbing for garments, so you can have those both knit sides facing the right and the wrong side. Double effect patterns, you can knit in circles, a lot more options than just a single bed. Other things that are sold for different machines are garter carriages, where it will attach onto your machine and just select certain needles to make into purl stitches. So instead of having your ribber, this will go along and select it in patterns. So if you want like seed stitch, moss stitch, it can help you do those effects quite easily. It is slow running and it is expensive. Other things are lace carriages. So if you like those open lace works, that's an attachment you may want to look into. Intarsia carriages, and then also color changers, where you can attach it on and have multiple different strands. I think I've seen up to 6 different colors they can run through. A lot more custom capability, a lot more details in your pattern to keep straight. So a lot of options. Some machines, some gauges work with ribbers, some don't. The ribbers are matched to each specific model of machine. So let's say you're getting a brother standard gauge, you need that same companion brother ribber. You can't mix and match brands. Now another thing to consider whenever you're purchasing is whether you want to buy something new or something used. If you buy new, you're going to have a higher price point that you're going to pay up front. However, you're going to be sure that everything's in working order, all the parts are included that you need, and usually if you buy it from a dealer, they may help you getting up and learning how to use your machine and set it up. If you buy used, you can really get some good deals. Sometimes you might even find one in your area free. A lot of the original users are downsizing, not able to use their machines anymore, and gave it to family members who don't want the knitting machine. So they just want to get this big thing out of their house. So if you can find one, a lot of things you need to be aware of is many of them don't know what all is supposed to be there, and also if it even works. So what I found to do is be sure to look online for the manual of the original machine. Usually they'll give you a parts list and you can go through and look at the pictures that are on the listing, or if you get to go look at the machine in person and compare what you see to what is in the manual. Some things, if it's just missing a little tool, these are easy to find to replace online. If it's missing your carriage, you probably don't want that machine because that's a big investment and harder to find just a carriage on its own. Another thing is if it's not known to work, a lot of these have been sitting in basements, under beds, in closets. You're taking a gamble. That's why whenever I bought the Toyota, I bought a punch card. It's a very easy mechanical system that I felt confident that I could repair it. A lot of it is just oil that's caked up over time. And there's a lady on YouTube, The Answer Lady Knits. She has some videos on a playlist with her husband, Ask Jack, that goes over a lot of the repairs even more into detail. So you could kind of see if they have one on the machine you're looking at, and also if you run into any troubles, check her out. But again, the punch card is very easy to look into and see if you're somewhat mechanically inclined. The electronic ones, a lot of the electrical boards will go bad and you need to find a repair person to fix those. There are some here in the States around, but usually you got to ship that panel off to them. So it's all depending on what you are willing to look into and gamble. All the old machines will need a sponge bar replaced, so don't forget to look into that. Just do it. No matter what, just replace the sponge bar. This LK150 does not have one, so I lucked out on that. So talking about price points, I mentioned sometimes you can get them free on local listings. Or if you can go to a group, sometimes people just bring all of them and are more happy to know that someone's getting it, to use it and love it, than try to find someone to sell it to. For new, an LK150 online, I have seen starting around the 500 mark, right at the date of this publication, and then some sites are really doubling the price. I bought this one used off of Facebook Marketplace in my area back right after COVID for $150. So it is a big investment considering it's a lot more than what just one of those Centro ones are or a knitting peg, but it's a great way to start getting into knitting machine and seeing if you like it and will use it before you invest a lot of money. These are also very lightweight and can travel very easily. So if that's something of concern. So this is the box that this machine came in, and it is smaller and a little bit easier to store than the other flatbed Japanese machines. So besides the lower price point, the ease of moving and storing, one of the downsides is this does not have a ribber, and also all the tools you need are with your hands. So it will take more time. There isn't a lot of things you can automate on it besides that needle selector bug, the little needle bug. But it is a great machine. It is easy to use, and I've really enjoyed working on it. So the next step up would be your punch card machines. At the time of this airing, I did see a site listing a standard and a bulky for sale, and it started out for the standard machine at $1,125. The bulky was a couple $100 even more. So you can see a punch card, a new one is over double what the new price of the LK150 is, but you'll get more patterning capabilities, more stitch options, and you'll have a dealer that helps you set it up and get to know it if you buy from the right dealer. The electronic is your next option, and I did see a standard electronic listed for sale here in the States for $1,500. So you can see it is quite a big investment for a knitting machine, but you get all kinds of patterning and feature capabilities with an electronic. The additional accessories to add on, a brand new ribber for a standard machine I saw listed for $790. And then if you're interested in a lace carriage for lace effects, which they help transfer those needle stitches over and create an open needle for and knitting two together, essentially, setting that up. Those carriages start new from $420 all the way over $580. So you can see you can spend well into the thousands for a new set on a machine. Many times on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, a knitting machine group, you can get these full sets for only a couple $100 as they're used, and most people don't know what it is to even value. They just want all this stuff out of their house and want it gone. So it is very financially beneficial to buy used over new. However, you are very much on your own in making sure that it works, everything is there, and getting it set up and cleaned and set in new working order so that you can make a good quality knit garment and not have the hassles of some of the errors that come into it. One more thing you're going to want to look into before you buy a knitting machine is where you're going to set this machine up. They do have clamps on the bottom, and most of them only go 1.5 to 2 inches. So if you have a very thick table, these clamps may not work where you would like to set up your machine. That was the case with this one. And what you can see is I put a board on top that I clamped with Home Depot clamps to the cabinet, and then just clamped the machine to that thinner board. There are stands that you can purchase separately that tilt. So if you go between working with the main bed and then you switch to working with the river and you want to angle those machines to be easier to use, these stands tilt to help you with that. There are knitting machine cabinets that were built that really are neat and can store all your gadgets and gizmos. But again, both of those are more investment that you're looking into, or put it on your dream wish list. We mentioned brands before, and now just another thing before you buy, which brand do you need to buy? From what I've seen and what I've heard in my knitting machine seminars that I've been to, Brother seems to be the top one. I see a lot of Brother machines, people use Brother machines. A lot of the repair parts are for Brother machines. The next one would be your Silver Singer Studio machines. I love my Toyota machine. I love it. I love how it works. Everything how it is, I love it, except repair needles are very hard to come by. The accessories, you see it, you get it, because there just aren't that many machines out there. So my final recommendation for where you should get, if you're looking for the hand knitted garment look, something like this, get an LK150. They're very easy to come by. They're fairly inexpensive in the scheme of knitting machines to get one, and they're very portable, very desired in the marketplace if you want to resell it, if you find you don't really want to do this anymore. A lot of ways just to get used to using a knitting machine. If you're wanting to have a little bit more options but still a relatively low price point, look at your punch card machines. You'll get a whole bunch of different options of patterning capabilities within your carriages and the patterns that you create and also can buy, and the price points a little bit lower than your electronics, and they're also fairly easy to repair. If you want to get the top machine, capability of everything, can do whatever you want to do, go look at the electronics. What gauge should you buy? That is completely up to you. What yarn do you like working with? What yarn do you have a lot in your stash? What garments or products do you like the look of most? And go with that. I hope that helps you get a little bit better idea of all the different things with knitting machines and which one would be the best for you. Drop a comment below if you have any other questions. Let me know what you need help with, or if there's another video I can do with the knitting machine. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the other videos, tutorials, and also all of our free patterns. Thanks again.